Good morning, everyone. EagleX here, and today I have a special guest speaker for today's video. I have PsychoFeather here.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about webcam etiquette for nationals and just in general when you play online with your friends, when you play in tournaments, what to expect, and things that judges look for, all those kinds of things. So first, I want to go ahead and leave it to Psycho to give a brief introduction of yourself.
So, my name is Alex, but most people probably know me as Psycho. I've been around the community for about, a year now. Got into judging back in summer of 2020, and now I'm more active as a player because of certain run-ins with the people in power. But enough of that. I still think that the game is in a very healthy state, and that we as a community can definitely get it better. But I guess the topics you wanted to talk about was first of all setups, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I noticed that you have your setup up, which is a prime example of a setup that I would deem very good. First of all, it shows your entire play area with a little bit extra room, right, on both sides, both your security and where your deck is. It also seems to be quite a high quality, so if you would turn a card over, we should be able to see, we can see what card is without having to think too hard and try to see what pixels it might entail, show. Yep. What else? One thing, I guess that moves into the camera angle, which is you're using the top-down view at the moment, which is the view I actually use myself. But one of the dangerous parts about the top-down view is that if you were to move your hands exactly, your opponent can actually see your hand now, but you might not recognize that they can see your hand. So that's one of the downsides with the top-down view, that if you tilt your hand too far forward, they can see what you have. But otherwise, I think this is the best camera view, unless you can put it so it looks like someone is sitting opposite to you. That's the other camera angle I would pose.
Yeah, for sure. And this is, so I've been using this for my webcam setups, and it's something I've really found to be useful. To kind of fix this problem, I try to angle it a little further back. Like you're saying, instead of being directly top down, you can see the hand a little more. But like you're saying, it's more on the other side, you can angle it a little bit more with that. Yeah, so camera angle, like you're saying, everything's in view. And something I always do, just for my end though, also is when I go into a webcam game, I'll tell my opponent, hey, if there's any issues ever in my end, what there is in my hand or what's on the field, you can't read it, let me know. I'll bring it up to the camera like I did here earlier. I'll bring it up, half of you may not know, but I'll drag you into the depths does. Or they might just not trust you, right? They ask you to read the card, they don't believe you, and then you just bring the card up and they can read it themselves. Yeah, exactly. So next thing I wanted to talk about with you was egg sleeves, because something I have here is I have a few examples of egg sleeves that I've used in various games. Now, for the most part, this might look good to the naked eye, but there's actually one sleeve here. I don't know if you can tell super well, but one of them's actually a little bit transparent.
I would assume it's the red one.
Yep, exactly. This one's actually... Now when I bring it up, you can kind of see a little bit more, but actually it's transparent.
Yeah, it's one of those things where on webcam it's hard to tell, but in person you probably can tell the outline of the back of the card, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is like a really jank broken sleeve I've had. But yeah, it kind of tore there. But yeah, for egg sleeves, what are the special rulings on egg sleeves? I believe they have to be sleeves, so you can't have a naked egg card.
So the rulings for the egg sleeves are actually the exact same as your main deck. The only difference is that they need to be of different sleeves than from your main deck, meaning that you need 2 different colors or 2 different artworks, etc.
Okay, so if I have a main deck that's black here, obviously, and hypothetically this was my egg deck, it would not be cool, or it would not work technically, because it's the same color.
No. But if they were white, that would be fine, or I don't know, blue or red or anything.
It's pretty flexible there.
Yeah. You're also allowed to double sleeve your main deck, but not double sleeve. Or then you can choose if you want to double sleeve your egg deck or not. Meaning that your egg deck does not have to have the same amount of sleeves as your main deck.
I was going to say, this is my main deck right now, and I have these lovely artworks from the Tame Revolution box, so I chose to double sleeve everything.
I guess that also just brings us in that triple sleeving is not allowed in this game. So you can't have inner, normal, and then an outer sleeve.
Really? Interesting. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
Yeah, because people sometimes want to put an inner sleeve in the official sleeves, like the ones on your sides, to give extra protection, and then put an oversleeve because the Bandai official sleeves are pretty bad quality, like shuffle feel and etc. So people put outer sleeves on them, and then triple sleeving is actually not allowed. So that's also...
It's real insightful. Yeah. So that is about the egg sleeves. And
I think the most common issue as a judge when it comes to egg sleeves is that they usually tend to use transparent sleeves, like the actual clear ones from Dragon and Shield, because they love the artwork of the back, but it's not allowed to be used. And the amount of warnings and potential game losses I have to give because of the egg sleeves are probably the majority of the penalties in a tournament.
And is that overall, or just in general with the sleeves and setup?
I think overall. That and slow play, I think, are the most two common infractions that we as judges deal with.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about it, we can go ahead and hop into... I think it's everything, on our setups in, really. But going into more the gameplay segment, you talked about slow play. How do you address that in the tournament? What can we do on our end as players? It's very common to assume when you're playing against a security control player, they take game one and then they're going to slow play game two because it's a very slow and grindy matchup. What can we do as players to call them out or make sure that we're working through things as we should in our gameplay?
Well, first of all, I think that we should have the benefit of the doubt for our opponents. Just because they think an extra a single turn, it doesn't mean that they're trying to slow play us. But at the same time, if it happens consistently and they're taking a long time for each move, then it's probably something to look out for. Because I think we all have had those turns where we just have to do a lot of math and seeing where the memory is going to end up to see if we can actually win that one turn. But I think the first thing to do is just ask your opponent, could you speed up a little bit? If they take it the right way, then I don't think there's going to be an issue. And if the issue is then resolved, then I don't think we have to include a judge here. But if they keep playing slowly and you kind of feel like it's from some sort of malicious intent, then I would call over a judge and then have the judge deem what they consider to be slow playing. Maybe just ask the judge, can you sit in here until the game is over or something. Most of the time, they are able to, because we have enough judges at an event to allow for something like that. Or they're just gonna sit there for a couple of minutes and make sure that everything's going according to how it's supposed to.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. It's one of those things where there's not a set in stone thing. It's saying this is slow play. You can tell obviously from this is taking forever. Obviously if you play against a little flute player, their turns are going to be longer. But if you're playing against an aggro player and it's Rookie Rush and they're spending 5 minutes trying to figure out their turn, there's something on the other end. More than that.
That's why the tournament rule manual, which everyone I hope have read, doesn't actually specify a specific amount of time for slow play. I think it, without quoting it exactly, I think it's about having to push the game state forward in a meaningful way is what is supposed to happen. So you need to push the game state ahead in a meaningful way within a reasonable amount of time to not be deemed slow play.
Yeah, of course, and that makes a lot of sense because, like I was saying earlier, Littlefoot, you're doing a lot of different things as progressing your board state. You're getting into your resorts, you're summoning free guys, and then you just kind of keep the deck is, you loop it and keep going. So it's really hard to justify the time thing, and that makes a lot of sense.
Because we can't put a hard limit on, you have 30 or a minute to have your turn, because then decks like Lilith Loop are not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So that talks about slow play. Is there any other like common penalties you see players have aside from their sleeves or from, I guess, just any things we've talked about so far?
It would have to be like your hands coming off camera, or other like internet related issues. Yeah, stuff like what you're doing right now. Maybe not exactly like that, but that's more common. Or if you hold your hand with just one of your hands, right? And then one hand is out of camera. Yeah, that's like it, right?
Yeah.
So this is quite common. And then without going into too much detail, I actually was able to ban someone because of a video recording where that basically happened. And we were able to determine that he actually changed out his entire starting hand for a predetermined starting hand because of that.
That's kind of wild.
He has since then been banned. But I'm glad I was able to actually getting him out of the community because of that.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know there's been a few instances of cheating that's been brought to the community's attention. Actually, one of my friends and locals actually went against that. One of the more famous cases of players swapping out cards and having more than 50 cards in their deck. And it just really came down to, like, you had the awkwardly long turns as, like, playing an aggro deck. And it's just one of the little things you can kind of look out for. Would you say there's any other, like, really noticeable signs or things that would give someone reason to be suspicious of their opponent?
I mean, mostly it's the... I don't think there is. I think everyone handles it differently because one common misconception is that, oh, nice people are usually the ones that act very nice could be the ones that are potentially cheaters because they don't want to come off as rude or mysterious. But I think that would paint all nice people in pretty bad light, right? So I don't want to condemn being nice to your opponent because that should be your goal, right?
There's not.
But
really
one thing I've noticed is, I understand if you're playing long events like nationals, that's going to be like 9 or 10 hours, right? You need a drink or you need to maybe grab a snack or something. So my advice is to always leave all the cards visible on the board, right? Or on your field. And then if you need to go grab a drink, when you come back with your hand, just show that it's empty. I don't know if you have seen casinos where dealers, like, when they, after they've handled the poker chips, they like reveal their hands that they're empty when they come into frame, and then they're able to touch like the cards again. So just like be curious, show your hands, show that you don't have anything in your hands. Because as someone that comes from card magic, like palming a card into your hand is pretty easy, and you can just like, oh, I need this card that's out of frame, I'm just gonna grab it, like palm it into my hand, and then all of a sudden I have it in my opening hand.
Yeah, I don't really have a great way to show palm magic. I'm not good.
Yeah, I actually had to show it to someone to like prove to him that I knew that was what he was doing, because he completely denied that he was cheating, but just from the movement of his hands, I could tell that that's not like normal. You wouldn't like handle yourself that way if you weren't palming a card. So I'm just glad I kind of have that experience in card magic to catch potential cheaters like that.
Yeah, so talk about common penalties. Let's go ahead and talk about, I guess it's kind of more of one combined topic of common misplays and ruling issues, things that people don't do correctly, they misunderstand. That causes a judge to have to come and repair game state, possibly.
I'm actually quite surprised. I think we've done a good job, like upholding like a sort of community to like a hub to get rulings, which is the main server or like the ruling server, where we answer questions pretty much daily and all the time. To get rid of those like most common misconceptions, but usually in a tournament we usually get questions about, oh, how does this card interact with this card, or is this a legal play? Does it work like we think it does? It's usually not that we have to come in and repair a game state. The players are usually pretty good at catching that prior to it happening. And unfortunately, if it goes too long after the breaking of the game state happens, we actually have to just let it go, because it's now accepted game state, right? We can't just go back too far unless we deem it irreparable, or we deem it that it's too severe of an infraction to just allow it through, and we have to basically just cancel the game and give a game loss to someone.
Yeah, and that's like the last case scenario for what you want to happen. I
Mm-hmm.
remember one of my interactions in BT5 format. I had a memory blocking Terrier mon out. My opponent's playing Lord Knight. They play a Blinding Rain. I totally wasn't even catching it. Gain 2 memory, let it all go through, and there's a judge watching the whole interaction, and we're able to repair the game state from that point. From removing the security, it's like, hey, just go ahead, put it back in security, shuffle it. Since neither one of you really caught or thought of it, we can fix this at least to the correct game state. And I think that's the closest I personally have had with that type of interaction with a judge.
Yeah, I think that's also an important thing to know, that players should never try to repair a game state themselves. Even if it looks super easy to repair yourself, it's like, oh, let's just, and you both agree on the repair, you still need to call a judge, and it's the judge that decides how the repair should happen.
Yeah, by the end of the day.
Even if it just is like, oh, I drew an extra card, I'm just gonna put it back on top, and both players agree, you still call a judge. And even if the judge still says that you just put the card back on top, then just call a judge. We're there to help you, not punish you. And if you feel like you're afraid to call a judge because we are gonna punish you, we're probably gonna punish you more for not calling us.
I don't think I've ever had a negative experience calling a judge mid-tournament for anything. It's always been like a quick resolve. Hey, this is what's going on. XYZ. You know, just it gets resolved really quickly and smoothly. So I've definitely felt encouraged to call judges regarding any questioning.
Yeah, and I'm quite stunned about people coming to us after a game or after the tournament, just like, oh, hey, I think my opponent cheated me in round 2, and we're just sitting there like, we can't do anything at the moment.
Yeah. The best thing we can really do is just keep an eye out for next time, you know?
Yeah, if you want our help, you need to call us immediately, unfortunately. We can't remedy a situation that happened 4 hours ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you record with a VOD, like on Twitch, and you can show, hey, my opponent is kind of sus here, their hand's gone. I think they might have had more, and you can, like, show video evidence. That might be something better for, like, later scenarios. Like, I don't know what it looks like on your end, if you can, like, issue a warning on the player or their account in general after a tournament if there's strong, hard video evidence. But it sounds like it has
we
to
can
be
report them to Bandai, actually. Most people that get banned in this game don't actually get banned during the tournament, but actually get banned after the tournament, because it takes some time for us to gather all the evidence, write up the report, and actually send it in, right? So we usually don't, because there was a big European guy that actually got banned recently from the latest. I don't remember if it was Evo Cup or regional, but he was banned. But he wasn't banned during the event. He was banned shortly after because the report had to be written, right?
Yeah, it's not like something you can write on a whim. There's probably more in the details side that we don't realize as players.
But that also brings me into the point that always record your games, right? You actually don't need the consent of your opponent to record the game. You need the consent to actually stream the game. Which means that you're actually free to record for personal use without them actually knowing. And if that evidence can be used to get them banned, you're actually allowed to share that video.
Interesting. I did not know that. I was going to say I've never recorded or streamed any of my matches before, just because I'm still trying to figure out my whole setup for everything I use for just the channel overall. But that makes a lot of sense, though, too, for people that have this up and they're capable of doing it, to kind of do it so they can look at their games obviously after, but be aware of what's happening, because like you're kind of saying, like, players don't realize what happens until after a tournament, because you're in the moment. Like, I know when I'm playing, I have a field here, I'm trying to think out, okay, what's my scenario look like for my hand, and that's probably like the moment your opponent has to start doing stuff when you're really focused on your board, and you might peek up every once in a while what's going on their board, what happens if I swing here, and all that.
Yeah, that's the problem with the webcam play, right? Because your peripheral vision can't really see what your opponent is doing while you're looking down at your hand. While if it was in person, the opponent was sitting like opposite to you, you would still see his hands moving or like him moving, etc.
Yeah, or at least on the corner of your eye, you could see something. Meanwhile, here it's a lot harder to.
Yep.
Yeah. A question I actually have for you, because it's something I just kind of thought about, is normally when I have a board stay up mid-game, I've had people go ahead and say, I declare I want to attack, and I attack. And they never specify what they're attacking. Has there ever been scenarios where people misunderstood that for being their security versus a Digimon?
Yep. Most people just assume you attack security every single time, and if they flip over that card, we have our problem, right?
Oh, your attack. Oh, it's a seal.
Oh, now both players saw that card, and then that happens quite often. People being too fast. Like, oh, let's say I'm attacking with Jetmon, right? I have a bunch of one attacking effects that I need to resolve in a specific order. And then the opponent just flipped security, and then it's like, no, I was actually attacking that Digimon, which had an arm deletion effect, but I had piercing, so that would come after, etc., etc. So there's a lot of things where it's easier to just slow down the game state or the gameplay a little bit, make sure that you actually do it systematically, where you do one action at a time, and always state your intention and actions, right? In my games, for example, when someone declares an attack versus me, they say, oh, I attack with Jasmine. I always ask, the first thing I ask is, against what? Because I want them to choose the target before they do their effects. Because sometimes I've had people swinging, and then after getting all the effects, they know it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to attack that because that seems favorable to me now.
Yeah.
Always have them do it in the right sequence where they have to declare the targets before they're using the effects.
Because I think technically, like, if you look at the rulebook, you're supposed to suspend to declare the attack, choose your target, and then they choose to block with their, or you get your win attack and then they get their block window.
Yeah.
Which is why Wargrave is able to pop blockers before they could block. You resolve your win attackings first.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I've ran into. I always double check, make sure, and sometimes you actually have players that choose like crash low rookies into big guys to make sure to get deletion effects, like to peer for draws, because you don't always die when you swing security. I mean, it's more likely you do, but it's something that actually might happen.
Yeah, that happens a lot when I play security control. I usually swing my Salamon into something where I know it's gonna die instead of swinging at security, where it could potentially live right and not give me the recovery.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like the most common example besides purple. It's going to be Salamons for security control. That one effect. Maybe something with a Deadly Paramon egg, but that would be like the niche scenario.
You also brought up the blocking thing, which I find interesting, because that could actually play into your disadvantage, right? If you're the opposing player, which has a blocker, and they say swing and you instantly declare block, they know that you're going to block the attack, which means that you could play around the information that you know that they're going to block. Which means that you can order your when attacking effects to maybe take advantage of knowing that they wanted to block, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a scenario offhand. It's basically things with multiple restands and swings, like all fours. Like
let's say Jesmon, you feel like, should I play the CL to gain the extra memory and the DP boost, or should I draw a card? And they block with, let's say, the Digimon that has less DP than you actually needed, or they declared block too early, prematurely. Then you might play Blanc to get an extra draw, right? And then you will play the CL.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense.
Or the other way around, right? They block with something you didn't realize they had, and then like, oh shit, I need to use it when attacking to minus the DP of that target.
Yeah. Oh, you have Omnimon's Wart, or Omnimon's Wart with like inheritable Black Magidramon. You're a blocker now. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's been
Lord Nightmare comes to mind when playing all the minus DP when attacking to see like, oh, I don't need to minus this because it's gonna block anyways, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyways, with that being said, we kind of move on to our miscellaneous category, though. Kind of talking about game states then. What's the first thing we should do if we ever run into a connection issue in the middle of a match?
The first is probably just call a judge, right? Judges won't be there immediately because we might be out on different calls, or we have to scroll down onto your table, right? It isn't as simple as, oh, someone just screaming judge at the local tournament and the judge instantly comes over. We have to first see the notification, which usually only takes a second or two. But then if you're at a table, I don't know, like 100, it takes a while to scroll down there, right? And then we join the table and then just let judge take it from there. Try to explain the scenario. Usually, what seems to be most courteous is just have the person that called the judge explain the situation. Because otherwise the judge might get both sides and they are trying to argue against each other. So just the one that called the judge explains the scenario. Then the judge might ask the opponent or the other player about more information or their side of things. But just have one person speaking at a time is usually the best bet.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where like if the judge can see there is an active issue, because maybe it takes like 3 minutes for them to reconnect. That's like where an issue of something they can manipulate the game state is a lot more likely to happen.
Yep.
Well, if a judge can see that directly, it's easier to give the game loss. Not like it's the best case scenario for what you want to happen being a player, but it's going to be the rulings for what has to happen.
Yeah, I think that's also a misconception about judges, that we like giving out penalties to people. It's like, no. I mean, if we could decide, we probably wouldn't be we wouldn't be needed. But that's not the reality of things. Like, our job is to maintain a proper an integrity of a tournament. We aren't there because we are like sadist people that just want to like give penalties.
Yeah.
Even though some might believe that we are.
It's just coming down to like you're doing your job by the end of the day as judges, and this is what has to happen.
Yeah.
Speaking about just helping judges out in general, is there anything you feel we should know as players to help judges out from their perspective, or something we can do to be more prepared as players?
I think we talked about that, where have one person speak at a time and try to leave out unnecessary information when speaking to the judge, because most people are, again, always afraid of the slow play, and we all know how we all fear the ties, right? Because of time, right? So I think trying to cut down on the unnecessary information, and then just having what the judge actually needs to know be present. Because I've had judge calls where people start talking about their day, and I'm like, okay, but is that important to the actual judge call I'm having here? Because I have 3 others I need to get to.
I get it, you try to be lighthearted and all that, but we need to be efficient.
Yeah, we try to stay professional. We try to do what we're supposed to do, and we kind of need the cooperation from the other end as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But most of the time, I have had very small issues with players as a judge or as a player myself. This community has been overall extremely good when it comes to handling both disputes and infractions, etc. It's overall, it seems like a nice community when it comes to being a judge.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that, because I came from Pokemon, which it was a fantastic experience when we had the in-person events, but it kind of like, it hurt me to only do online things. I get it. They do what they can, but it's just not as fun. But I found the Digimon community overall has been very uplifting. They're encouraging. They have lots of great content creators. They have lots of great judges. Just people all around that try to make the game better actively.
I think the game coming out during COVID, and also it being like an online thing has actually helped with the influx of, like, I guess, nice people, because people understand that play this game actually understand that it is different to play online than it is to play in person.
Yeah, which just overall makes me really happy. It's a very great community here at my locals here in Texas. I've had an amazing time just talking and making friendships with local people over this game, and it's been amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I made a lot of friends, both like locally, but also on the internet, thanks to this game, and I'm more thankful than I could ever probably express for all of it.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, I think we've covered all our topics. I think we're good overall. Like I said, Psycho, I really appreciate you hopping on here for this discussion. I really enjoyed it, and I'll try to have this video up on Wednesday. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course. If you have any further questions, my DMs are always open, of course, and I'll try to be as active as I can.
Sure. With that being said, thanks very much, everyone, for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe as I try to do more content like this. Let me know how you like this one. Thank you very much, and take care.